What if I told you that reflections don't always show what's really there? Tonight, we'll uncover 3 disturbing true horror stories involving mirrors and doppelgängers. Encounters so unsettling they blur the line between reality and illusion. Stay close, because once you hear them, you may never look at your own reflection the same way again. And now, let's step into the first one. The fog crept through the ancient trees like a shroud, thickening with each passing moment. The towering pines, gnarled and twisted, stood as silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of the forest. A low, lonely howl echoed in the distance, sending shivers down Mary's spine. She clutched her flashlight tightly, its feeble beam barely piercing the thick curtain of mist that surrounded her. Mary had entered the forest on a dare, her friends' laughter still ringing in her ears. "It's just a stupid story," they had said. "Nothing but old wives' tales." But as the evening light faded, the stories had taken root in her mind. Whispers of an entity that prowled these woods, a ghostly figure seeking the lost and luring the unwary into its embrace. With each step, the path grew more treacherous, the underbrush clawing at her jeans as if it wanted to pull her back. The world around her seemed to hum with an unseen energy, and the branches swayed ominously, casting grotesque shadows in her flashlight's glow. Mary called out for her friends, her voice trembling, but the only response was the wind, which seemed to mock her. She stumbled upon a clearing, the trees parting as if to reveal a hidden secret. At the center lay a decaying cabin, its windows shattered, the door creaking slightly as if inviting her inside. Heart racing, she approached, compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity. The air was heavy, saturated with the scent of moss and damp wood. She stepped inside, the room dark save for her flashlight beam, which flickered as if it sensed the danger lurking within. Old furniture lay strewn about in disarray, remnants of a life long abandoned. A musty smell mingled with a hint of something metallic, each breath a reminder that she was not alone. As the light danced across the walls, her heart dropped. There were scratches, deep and jagged, carved into the wood as if someone had tried to escape. Panic surged through her veins. Should she turn back? But something caught her eye. A mirror, tarnished and cracked, hung on the far wall. She moved closer, fascinated. Her own reflection stared back, but just beside it, she noticed a shadowy form lingering just out of reach, its features indistinguishable. She blinked and it was gone. The room spun, her breath quickening. "It's just a trick of the light," she whispered to herself, though her voice quaked with doubt. With trembling hands, she reached out to touch the mirror's surface, drawn in by the dark abyss it seemed to reflect. Suddenly a low whisper coiled around her, a voice slithering from the depths of the cabin walls. "Help me," it breathed softly. Mary recoiled, confusion and dread battling within her. Was it a plea or a curse? She turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. Her heart raced and the temperature plummeted, ice settling in her bones. Panic boiled within her as shadows flickered around her, merging into the form she had seen in the mirror. It was tall, its limbs stretched unnaturally long, fingers curled into sinister claws, and its face a void, eyes deep wells of despair. "Why do you linger?" it hissed, voice distorted and layered as if 1,000 voices spoke in unison. Mary stepped back, but the figure advanced, its presence suffocating. "You're here to help me, you're just like the rest." In that moment, realization dawned, a chilling insight that froze her soul. She was not the first to enter the woods. Friends' voices echoed in her mind, each one a memory, a promise of laughter vanished. They had been drawn into the same trap, their fates intertwined with this ghastly creature. "No," she wailed, turning to the mirror, desperate to escape. But the reflection showed the cabin forevermore, a prison devoid of hope. The door rattled, and the figure lunged toward her, becoming one with the shadows. As darkness enveloped her senses, the last thing Mary heard was the soft, mocking whisper, "Welcome home." Our journey continues. This next encounter with a mirror reveals something far darker than a reflection, something that was never meant to be seen. The forest loomed ahead, a dark curtain against the dusk sky. Old oaks twisted like gnarled fingers reaching toward the heavens, their branches whispering tales long forgotten. Climbing into his SUV, Ethan felt a sudden urge to drive closer to the heart of the woods. He wasn't an adventurous man, but something about those trees beckoned him. As he trudged along the path, shadows danced alongside him, flickering in the dense underbrush. The sun dipped lower, and the air turned heavy, pregnant with foreboding silence. A chill ran down his spine, but he dismissed it as the cooling evening breeze. After several minutes of walking, he stumbled upon an old cabin shackled by time and overgrown ivy. The windows were obscured by grime, yet a flicker of candlelight flickered inside. Curiosity tugged at him, pulling him toward the door, creaking on its rusted hinges like an old man's brittle joints. Inside, the air was thick with dust, memories suspended like cobwebs. The floorboards creaked beneath his weight. On the wall hung a series of photographs, faded black and white images capturing nightmarish moments. Figures blurred and twisted, their eyes void, mouths gaping as if caught in shrieks of despair. Each image felt alive, a scream frozen in time. Ethan's breath quickened, a primal sense of being watched crawling over his skin. He turned to leave but froze. At the far end of the room stood a mirror, its surface dark and cracked, reflecting only shadows. Something stirred within. He stepped closer, drawn by an unseen force. As his heart pounded in his chest, he caught a glimpse, his reflection rippling like the surface of disturbed water. It grinned back at him but then morphed into something grotesque. Fangs elongated, eyes gleamed with malice, laughter neither his nor human echoed from the depths of that glass prison. Fear surged through him, a venom coursing through his veins. He stumbled back, tripping over the journal that lay on the floor. Its pages flickered open, revealing scribbled horrors, prayers mixed with curses. Words like, "They come for you and never break the glass," screamed from the paper. A realization dawned, heavy and chilling. Around him, the chilling whispers grew louder, voices mixing in a chaotic chorus. The wooden beams of the cabin groaned as if the house itself were alive, a predator waiting to strike. Ethan's eyes darted back to the mirror, where his reflection was no longer there. Instead, he saw shadows moving behind him. He whirled around, but the room lay empty, yet the whispers intensified, wrapping around him like a suffocating fog. Panic clawed at his throat. Trapped in a web of fear, he remembered the warnings in the journal. With every ounce of strength, he dashed to the door, heart racing as he pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't budge, locked by some unseen force. He turned back toward the mirror, his reflection returning, eyes wide with terror now. The entity on the other side smiled, reaching through, fingers gliding past the shattered surface. Ethan backed away, but the room closed in, shadows inching toward him, tightening their grasp. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing the darkened woods beyond. With a surge of adrenaline, he bolted outside, gasping for breath, glancing back at the cabin. Yet it stood quiet, serene now, as though nothing had happened. He stumbled into the trees, the way home lost amid the oppressive gloom. Hours later, when dawn broke, Ethan still ran, unaware of the eyes following him from the shadows, waiting for him to look back, to blink. In that moment, when the sun kissed the horizon, he dared to take a glance over his shoulder. The trees shifted, whispering secrets he would never understand, and the forest smiled. And now we move to the final story, where a familiar face at the door may not have been human at all. Through the lonely streets of Eldridge Hollow, twisting around the gnarled branches of the trees that lined the cobblestone path, the moon hung high, shrouded in clouds, casting fleeting shadows every time a gust brushed by. Sarah wrapped her coat tighter around her as she walked home from the late shift at the diner, her footsteps echoing loudly in the stillness. She had always loved the peacefulness of this little town, but tonight, a sense of unease gripped her. Glancing behind her, she saw only darkness, yet an unsettling feeling crept up her spine, the kind that whispered she wasn't alone. She quickened her pace, her heart thumping like a frantic drum. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket and she fished it out, relieved to see a message from her brother. "Hey, you okay? I had a weird feeling." She furrowed her brow, a chill running down her arms. The message was odd, almost as if he sensed something she hadn't shared. She texted back, "Yeah, just heading home." As she turned the corner, the streetlights flickered, bathing the pavement in a stuttering glow. Sarah noticed something out of place. A figure at the end of the street, dark and indistinct, swaying slightly as if caught in an invisible breeze. Panic clawed at her throat and she hesitated. "It's just a trick of the light," she murmured to herself. Yet the figure seemed to draw closer, the darkness around it deepening. With each step it took, she felt a weight on her chest, as if the air itself thickened, pinning her down. "Who's there?" Sarah called out, her voice trembling despite her attempt to sound strong. No answer, only the sound of her heartbeat echoing in her ears. As she turned to retreat, a chilling laugh echoed down the street, eerie and hollow, sending a shiver right through her bones. Was it real or a cruel figment of her imagination? Adrenaline surged and she sprinted toward home, not daring to look back. Reaching her front porch, she stumbled in through the door and slammed it shut behind her, locking it tight. The familiar comfort of her small living room felt miles away from the unease just outside. She sank against the door, gasping, her mind racing. What was that figure? Surely it couldn't have been. A knock reverberated through the house, resonating with a slow, deliberate rhythm. "Sarah?" It was her brother's voice, softer this time, almost pleading. Relief washed over her despite the strangeness of the situation. She rushed to the window and peered out. He stood under the swaying streetlight, looking anxious, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something. Her heart swelled with worry, but every logical thought was drowned out by her growing dread. She fumbled for her phone to text him, but saw instead a string of increasingly frantic messages flashing on the screen. "Get inside. Stay inside. Don't open the door." Before she could process it, the door behind her creaked open, a cold draft slipping in. Sarah whipped around, her breath hitching in her throat. "It's okay. It's just me." A voice that sounded like her brother's echoed from within her darkened home, but it felt wrong, twisted. The voice was familiar, yet carried an undertone that distorted it, a smoothness she had never heard. Panic surged. Her brother was still outside. She had seen him. The figure was inside, calling to her in his voice. No, it couldn't be. Her gut screamed for her to run, but where could she go? Behind her, the darkness stretched, watching and waiting. Sarah stumbled backward, heart pounding. "If you're really my brother, say something only you would know." Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. Then the front door eased open completely, revealing a silhouette that looked just like him but distorted, a grinning face that hovered too close, eyes glinting like glass. The familiarity twisted into something grotesque as it took a step forward, shielded in darkness, the real horror lurking behind. "Sarah," it whispered, the voice oozing with malice. "Let me in." And all the while outside, a frightened shout pierced the night, a scream swallowed by the wind as the moon gleamed down, indifferent to the nightmare unfolding in Eldridge Hollow. Mirrors and doppelgängers, symbols of mystery that can hide truths too disturbing to confront. If these stories unsettled you, remember there are many more waiting inside the Shadow Vault. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because the next descent into darkness is coming soon.